they, instead of immediately taking accountability, they get upset because they still idolize women.
Right.
Because women are very important to them, and when they realize the reality, they get really upset. It's kind of like getting upset at reality. Yeah, I mean, what it's done for me, this kind of space, is it made me realize how whack I was.
Yeah, right.
I was like, man, I was so lame, dude. I was such a squimpy little dude. It's just like, please give me it. Like, man,
Can I have
what made me
pussy?
realize. Yeah, that, and it's also made me understand where that leads, and it's I'm gonna not do that.
Yeah,
that's the overwhelming majority of what it's done for me. So that's why I appreciate the space. I just don't think most men in this space are looking at it that way. I think they look at the reality, and they, instead of immediately taking accountability, they get upset because they still idolize women.
Right.
Because women are very important to them, and when they realize the reality, they get really upset. It's kind of like getting upset at reality.
Right.
And what I've done is it's been refreshing because it's made me understand the culture and dating a lot, a lot better, like way better than what I used to.
Yeah.
So now I have answers. I have paths I can take, and I know if I go down the path I used to go, I know where it leads.
Right.
I know the risks, and I know like where that goes. I know like a lot of things I've been told from like women in my family over the years have just been like, I don't know, not necessarily. I mean, it's a lie. I don't think they've been intentionally lying. I think they just weren't aware that they were spouting lies.
Right. Well, what it is that when you get advice from women on how to date and stuff, they're giving you advice from their perspective. They're not giving you advice from a male perspective. And I think that's one of the main things that I got out of The Rational Male was that men and women don't think the same way about relationships.
Yeah.
And we've been raised, especially like us and even our dad's generation, because it's been going on for like 50 years, have been raised to think that men and women think the same way about relationships. And that's just simply not true. A man is typically valued for what he can provide, right? And a woman is valued for her femininity and her fertility. And I mean, that's just reality. Yeah. I mean, and that's not to say that there aren't exceptions. I hear the people, well, I'm not. That's not to say there aren't exceptions to that rule, but typically that's just how it is because biologically that's how we are wired, right? Like back in the day, you know, a woman would have to be in the cave or whatever, and the man would have to go out and get meat or whatever, and make sure that his babies were going to be safe from the freaking saber-toothed tiger that was coming to kill him and all that stuff. And we still have that mentality now. I mean, typically, up until about like the 60s, it would be the man that would go out and make money and then come back home and the woman would take care of the kids, all that kind of stuff. This new dynamic where women can go out and work and do all these things, this is new. And so what happened is, I think that our culture did not really change, it changed, but our biology didn't. Right. And so women are still giving advice for 50 years ago because, like, I think a lot of people say this, and even Myron said this, women would just still want traditional men, but they don't want to be traditional women. And this has happened very, very rapidly because women don't have another framework for how to evaluate the sexual marketplace or intersexual dynamics at all. And men have been told that this framework is still in place, but like, you know what I mean? It's still in place, except so you need to do X, Y, Z. But you also have to accept that she's going to do X, Y, Z. She's not going to hold up her end of the deal half the time, all this kind of stuff. And so really what it is I think guys, when they learn this stuff, they just kind of, they immediately get upset. They they think that it's completely useless and that all they could do is like sit on the internet and jerk off. And that's the best they're going to get. And it really sucks because it doesn't actually bring out what I think should happen with it when it comes to male nature is learn how to navigate the new space. Okay. The reality is this experiment has gone on for a while. I think it's starting to reverse itself, but in the moment, all you can really do is figure out how you can navigate it and vet and learn how to look for the qualities in women that are going to be conducive to a long-term relationship. If that's what you want, if you don't want that, then cool, you can go ahead and do that, but there's no need to get bitter. And then if all you want to do is just pay for sex and get your nuts off, then you could do that too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a bunch of avenues to go down, but I think a lot of guys end up reading this stuff or learning about this stuff and getting completely jaded almost immediately.
Yeah, I think, and like we mentioned before, I think before we started recording, this is important in the gaming space because I'm starting to see this kind of mentality get popular in the gamer space. And what I don't want you guys to do, because I see a lot of people in the gaming space do this, is use the red pill truths as an excuse to sit in this comforting space where you just play games and jack off all day.
Right.
Because it will have you think that you might as well just play games and jack off because women aren't worth it anyway. That is not a conducive mindset to go after. I mean, you'll probably become depressed doing that. I'm gonna be honest. Like, that's not a good way.
Yeah.
I think what it should tell you to do is spend less time doing that. And if you're going to invest time in women, right? Like, you definitely don't want to do it because you think you're trying to gain something from talking and dating and having sex with women. You want to make sure like you have your shit sorted out in your life first.
Right.
When you go and deal with women, though, you understand the situation better. That's what the red pill space, I think, would probably that's probably the best advice it would give you, is that when you go into that space with women, you know how to maneuver it. You know what are the risks and what kind of like you're more aware of what to deal with rather than just avoiding it entirely.
Right.
Unless that's what you really want to do, maybe like you're religious or whatnot, but you guys are not.
Yeah.
Like, they're not. Most gamers are just like playing games and jacking off.
Yeah.
There's an excuse for it.
Well, so I agree, and this is what I've said to people before too, is about the red pill stuff. Is even if you're not intending to, excuse me, goddamn, sorry guys, I'm burping in your fucking ear. Even if you're not intending to get into a relationship with women, still learning this stuff is valuable because you're gonna have to deal with them. Because women do things like work, and you might have a female boss. You might have like female coworkers or whatever. Learning about female nature and how they think, how they think differently from us, and what our nature is, and outside of the lies that we've been told since we were little kids, really will help you navigate those spaces more effectively too. And I remember, and this is a good transition because we're talking about. We're going to be talking about Taylor the Fiend's Discord, but I remember when we were in there, I was having a conversation with someone, and I said, "This is why good, even if you're not trying to pursue a relationship, the red pill is good because you're going to have to deal with women anyway." And they said, "Well, my solution is just to never, have to work with or be alone with a woman." Or That's not always possible. There are going to be times where you have a female manager over you, and you're going to have one-on-one with her. Like if you work in the corporate space, which I have done, there's this concept of one-on-ones where you go and talk to a team member, and you'll just like either take a walk with them or you go get coffee or whatever, or sit in the meeting room, and you'll talk about either work or whatever, get to know each other better, whatever it is that you decide that half an hour or an hour is worth doing. And sometimes you're gonna have to do that with women, and that's just the reality. So you can't say, "Oh, I'm just never gonna do it," because that's not gonna happen unless every single woman decides that they're gonna go back to the role of being a traditional housewife, which I think more and more women are doing. But that's not gonna happen overnight, and it's not gonna be absolute. So learning this stuff is important, not just for relationships, man. And this whole thing about, oh, well, it's just not worth it I really think it's sad that like we've gotten to this point where men are so beaten down, right, that they think that, okay, now learning about female nature means that it's not worth it. Dude, our grandfathers like knew about this shit implicitly. Like they just knew that it was like this. My grandmother literally told me that my grandfather went up to her, like before she died, she told me that she's like, your grandfather, when he met me, he said, he saw me on the street and he said, "Hey, you're beautiful. We're going to get married." That was pretty much it. That's how it went. Dating was not a thing back then, So now we have to deal with all of these things that are new, and women, and birth control and all this stuff. Women have more autonomy. They work. They're more, that's just a new challenge that you guys need to understand is just going to actually make you stronger if you learn how to get over the challenge. It's just like what we were talking about with Psychonauts. You're not going to get good at the game by like turning on invincibility mode. You're going to have to learn how to get through the challenges and accept the fact that you're going to lose sometimes. Like I said, I've been in situations where I've had bad situations with women too.
Me too. Yeah.
Right. But you learn the next time and you get better at it over time. You don't just give up, because it's like a muscle that's going to atrophy if you don't use it, you know.
It's also you mentioned about kind of dealing with women being inevitable. I mean, they're more than half the population of the entire planet.
Right, exactly.
I mean, you're gonna come into contact with them in some way, shape, or form,
right.
And you have to know how to navigate. Like, because you mentioned what some people do in the Red Pill space is they do take the conducive aspects of it, focus on their life. They might double their income. They may make a lot more money, and with more money, usually comes more available women who might have the possibility of being attracted to you, because you may be put in positions where you're exposed to more women, whether it's a corporate party, whether it's like a coworker who invited you somewhere. It's going to give you more opportunities and more money you make usually. And so you have to know how to navigate that, because there's going to be girls who see how much money you make, and they may either be attracted to you. It may not necessarily just because you have money, but the fact that you have money has kind of opened the possibility of them getting to know you that you might not have had before.
Right.
You're gonna have to know which girls you're gonna want to deal with. You're gonna have to know how to navigate that space. So this is where the Red Pill stuff becomes very useful. But I think that doesn't really happen. What ends up happening is guys just avoid it entirely, and that's just it's not practical, and it's kind of like you said. I wanted to talk about what your grandmother said about your grandfather. Just, hey, you're beautiful. Let's get married. So this is a guy. This guy, I think it's the Real Attorney is his name.
I know
the lead attorney. Yeah, I'll just watch the video. So he's got a few streams about the whole Aberrant Priest stuff, and he had a guy Anton on there. Now this guy was, he's like a super conservative Christian guy who's like married with his wife. She's the only woman he's ever been with.
Oh dang!
He's kind of debating this other guy about that we want to change this narrative of, because he was a very it's very like Christian narrative, kind of like we have to stop like sleeping with hoes. We really have to like court women kind of thing. And it was kind of back and forth. And he was asked, well, so what do you do when you date? And he's like, I reject dating. He's like, you see, this is the problem. You guys of dating. You see, the way I did it was the lifestyle I was living. I just surrounded myself with like-minded people, met women, and eventually a woman that I knew for a while, I eventually courted her, and we just got married eventually.
Yeah.
It wasn't really like a process of dating. He's like, this is a new concept that you guys have just accepted as default.
Yeah.
He's like, a lot of us, like traditional guys, we reject that premise entirely. And it really made me rethink about like the dating culture. Just like the word dating, we've accepted as like the thing to do. You have to like, take the multiple dates and have sex with them. It's just like, and he's kind of challenging that. Just like, this is not a thing we've always done.
Yeah.
Very new idea. I thought it was very interesting. Really made me rethink about like the kind of like where we are in the dating culture, and is like, do we even have to do this?
Right. Well, we don't necessarily. Yeah. I mean, like Kevin Samuels had a similar thing. We was talking about that too. It's like dating is relatively new. It didn't used to be like that. People would meet somebody at church or something like that, and then they would like get together and they'd be married like a month later. Like those things would happen all the time. And like the reality is, it's like people will say, well, you have to have time to get to know somebody. Okay, what do you need to know about that person that you're not going to get in like the first couple of weeks knowing who they are? You know what I mean? And like everything else is like kind of an adventure that you go on together. Like obviously there's been issues where people, get into, bad situations, but that's actually like less than people would really think. Like, dude, my girl and I moved to a completely different state together after knowing each other for like 2 months. And now we're engaged. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not like you can't just like find somebody who like, has similar values to you. Just like vet their values. And then you guys can figure it out. Like the dating thing is like, I don't even know why people have just accepted this as like, okay, this is how you're supposed to do it. And I think a lot of it has to do with like feminine, what's the word? feminine indecision, right? So it's like, oh, well, if you notice, like if you talk to a woman, you're like, oh, well, you've been dating this guy for like 4 years and you haven't married him. Like, well, I'm just not ready to do this and da 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 da. It's like, okay, so you've been with this person for years and years and years, and you don't want to commit to them. What are you doing exactly?
Kevin
you know
Samuels hammers on that all the time. It's just like, where's the plan? You got with this person, where's the plan?
Right.
And I think it's kind of like what your I think your grandma kind of like didn't mean to, but it kind of hinted at the fact that like in like what happened with her and your grandfather, they were able to do that because they both understood marriage as a duty,
right?
More
Exactly.
about obligation.
Right.
Really gone away from that. Marriage is now about personal happiness. It's just like that's really a side thing.
Exactly.
Really
the happiness thing. We've gotten to this point
overrated
in society. Yeah, where it's like, oh, I gotta be happy all the time. Like that's fucking stupid.
Stupid, man.
That's fucking stupid. Just because I think it was Will Smith or something. He said something about like oh God, what did he say? He said that like basically essentially he was saying that happiness was not like being happy all the time is not necessarily healthy, right? It's like because you need to understand like that you need to go through strife and stuff in order to like actually be able to appreciate those good moments. People have gotten to the point where they think that they're just entitled to being happy all the time. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's the internet. I don't know if it's like feminine imperative. I don't know if it's like whatever it is, it's bad. And we need to get over that completely, because then I think people will start understanding, like you said, marriage being, a duty, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just what we're supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? Like you pair off with somebody, you marry them, you have some kids, whatever it is. I mean, I think honestly, like the state being involved in marriage, which is a completely different topic, but the state being involved in marriage has probably soured a lot of people's opinions on it over the past like century or so. But like, this is where we get into this thing where like, I think a lot of guys too are worried about. So we have this concept of no fault divorce in this society where it's like, okay, well, if I don't like you, basically I can get divorced. And I think that, since we know that divorce courts totally are rigged in favor of women and all this kind of stuff, a lot of guys, once they learn all these things, they get scared. But I think again, this is just a challenge that you're just going to have to deal with and understand that like you're going to have to just make a better decision about the mate, because at the end of the day, men are still the ones who control access to marriage. Women control access to sex, men control access to marriage. That's it. And so if you're just sitting around, you're going to marry a chick just because she's around, whereas she doesn't have like the same values as you or whatever. Like a lot of guys do that. They marry girls that like don't have the same values as them, that are like
they give them good sex and they marry them.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
What happens when a kid comes in?
Right. Exactly. And they're not going to be good mothers, not going to be this, whatever. And then they get surprised when they get raked over the coals. It's because they haven't learned how to decipher the signs of like a woman who's not good for marriage. And so that's what that's how the red pill benefits you. And this brings us to Taylor Fiend's Discord, because we've been trying to explain this. We were trying to explain this to these guys in Taylor Fiend's Discord. And if any of you guys from there are watching it, I'm not married yet. I've been fucking with you guys, okay? But because I like to say that, I said, I'm engaged, so it's like, whatever, I'll just say I'm married, it's fine. But the funny thing is that I've been saying that to those guys, and they just get like fly off the handle like immediately, right? Because they've been conditioned to think that marriage is immediately something that's going to screw you over. Women are going to screw you over all the time, all these things. And a lot of these guys, dude, it's really sad because a lot of these guys are young.
You may want to mention who Taylor the Fiend is first.
Okay. Oh yeah. Good call. Taylor the Fiend's Discord. So Taylor the Fiend is another YouTuber, and he does a bunch of videos on, and I like them. They're kind of funny. I think he's an Australian guy.
I think he's from Australia. He's basically he's kind of in the Red Pill space. But what's interesting about Taylor the Fiend, if you guys know who he is, he basically reacts to like feminist TikToks, not necessarily feminist, but a lot of like modern woman dating style TikToks, where it's like women kind of like, if a man does this and this and that, and typically like it would be like a woman mad at that she's being that men aren't committing to her.
Yeah,
and he kind of gives like commentary with kind of like in the Red Pill space around those, like responding to those videos. And what's interesting is that he covers videos that I've never seen before, that no one's really covered. And he has an open Discord where you can suggest videos and TikToks.
Yeah,
that's usually where, and the Patreon people are usually where he watches the videos and reacts to them. So it's an open Discord, and we both joined it.
Yeah.
We recently got muted, so we just left, and
yeah,
we're gonna get into it.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. So we would talk to these guys a lot. I kind of triggered them a lot by telling them that I was married and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, so essentially, we were in both of these Discord. I think you were in there a little longer than I was because I just kind of showed up
for a while.
I was watching his videos for a while, but a lot of these guys in there are very young and they're very like sold on this red pill idea. There's like guys in there, they're like teenagers that are like
17-year-olds,
right?
Who are more mature than most of them.
So yeah. But a lot of these guys are sitting there, you know, they're angry, right? And they're like,
very mad.
You know, oh well, there's no point in getting with girls and all these kinds of things. And what's the point? This, that, the other, kind of like completely black pilled because of all of this red pill content that they've been consuming. And, you know, for a while, we were kind of going back and forth with them all on a lot of stuff because we're not like, I don't know. So I like to take, I don't want to speak for you, but I like to take the Kevin Ray Wilder white pill approach to the red pill. Okay, you take the red pill, learn about this stuff. Yeah. And then like,
here's reality. We can do something about
it. Right. Exactly. And then what is kind of what I like to do. Right. And a lot of these guys, on the other hand, they're kind of like, no, we're doomed. So they're black pilled.
Yeah.
And so we're in there. We're kind of dissenting voices. A lot of people didn't really like that much. So we would get piled on like almost every single time we came in and talked. But recently, something that happened was we both got muted in that Discord. And why did we both get muted? Well, COVID, which I guess I don't know if I could say this on YouTube, but I'm going to say it anyway.
YouTube.
Beer bug, whatever.
YouTube overlord.
don't take this video down, YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh God, I gotta finish coding the website so we can just not worry about that. But anyway,
nice.
So we're talking about the beer bug, and I was saying that, you know, I wasn't worried. We're worried about it. There's a bunch of guys who were like really about vaccines in there, which I was surprised on because I thought we were supposed to be red pilled. Like, see, this is the thing. I think the red pill has been co-opted by manosphere in terms of this is only about women. Whereas red pill is about being aware about everything, not just women. And so these guys who are in here just advocating for vaccines and all this stuff, like, which is a strange thing for somebody who's supposedly red pill to advocate for, because my stance is you can get it if you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I don't want to get it because of this, because of my reasons or whatever. But it shouldn't be like a thing where I'm telling anybody to do anything. You take the facts, you figure it out and go for yourself. But we're talking about this. And I think at some point I called one of the mods a nigga and the mod got mad at me and said, don't call me that or I'll kick you out of here. And I was like, what? Like,
dude, if you were to go in the search bar in the Discord, type my name and see nigga and see how many times I've said it there.
Yeah.
None of them would make any sense to you.
Right.
What are you getting mad about?
Right. No, and it was weird because I had been in there before and I had not changed the way that I talked. So it was about the fact that, okay, this person, this moderator, and before we continue on, we have nothing against Taylor at all.
Yeah, I still watch it. Like I'll eat dinner and watch it. I like his content. It's entertaining.
I still watch his videos. Yeah. This is nothing against him. This is just one specific mod that is, and also some of the guys in there are just fucking weird. But like this mod sort of is on a power trip right now because what happened was we were talking about COVID and I was asking qualifying questions about like an article that somebody had posted. And this mod asked me to prove something that I'd never claimed, essentially. I think I have some screenshots of it. I was thinking about putting it in, but I don't think I will. So I'll just explain it to you guys. Basically, the mod asked me to prove a point that I never made. And I said, that's not really how it works. You're the one who made the claim. I just said I didn't believe the claim. I didn't say that there was an opposite claim, whatever. I don't have to prove anything that I didn't claim. That's not how it works. Then, and prior to that, I was warned for saying nigga. And later on, I said nigga again, but not towards the mod. I just said it because I was like, you know, he just doesn't want to be called that, sure, whatever. So I said nigga, this, whatever. And I got muted. And I was like, wait, are you serious right now? And I talked to some other people who even were disagreeing with me in the chat in DMs. And they were like, yeah, that was kind of ridiculous. Like, I don't really know what's going on. It seems like he's kind of power tripping. You know what I'm saying? And And then I guess later on you got muted. I don't know what happened to you.
I just said this Discord's getting kind of whack, and more obscene language that YouTube is not friendly with. But like, I've said that word many times, and I got muted. And I think it kind of leads to this point we were making earlier about like, kind of like what Fresh and Fit did. It feels like a lot of people in the Red Pill space who claim to be like very aware, they get really emotional. Emotions control, like it goes against the whole point of this. It's just
yes,
like,
exactly.
To the side, here's reality. What do you do?
Right.
But then emotions come into play and ruin everything.
Right.
So it doesn't. It's like no matter what kind of space you're in, with that kind of like with that kind of experience, kind of like it kind of just assured me that it doesn't really matter what community you're in. Human nature is going to show at some point.
Yeah,
people are just going to get emotional. A lot of these guys are very, very emotional. I mean, there's been many times where you talk about how you're married and you're immediately met with like ad hominems on your relationship that they know nothing about.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's crazy. It's like, you know, I assume in this space it'd be kind of men encouraging each other. Right. What you find is when you like a lot of these guys subscribe to the Red Pill, and when you try to challenge something by saying, here's proof that my lived experience has this about the narrative that doesn't really make sense to me, they get offended.
It's an ideology.
Yeah.
So that's what it is it's like, I think you hit on at the beginning where you said a lot of these guys, they're trying to like find something and latch onto it.
Yeah.
Because they were given this one ideology from birth, and then they find out that sucks, so they have to like latch onto it. I totally understand that. They like, oh, I need to find like something that I can be a part of and all this kind of stuff. But the problem with that is again, they're not understanding what to do with the information after they receive it. They're just getting mad about it. And if somebody comes in like me and says, oh, well, I'm married, you know what I mean? Like, and this is, you know, how I figured out what to do. It's like, oh, well, you know, you're going to lose half your shit and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, sure. Like, I understand that there's risks to doing all that stuff, but like, that doesn't necessarily mean that like everything is just like not worth it. Like, I'm just going to sit on my dick and play fucking video games. You know what I'm saying? Like that. What's the alternative? Doing that? And that's usually what happens. They get demoralized and just apathetic.
Right. Because usually you hear about the Red Pill rage, but I think that's not even as bad as the demoralization and apathy.
Right. I agree.
I think that's way worse.
I agree.
Because that's easier to do. It's easy to just say screw women and just play games and jack off. So what happens when a mass population of men start doing that?
Yeah. Well, I think that's happening wasn't that happening in Japan a couple of years ago? I mean, I think it might still be where like guys are just saying like screw it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And what happens when that happens is the populations decline. And I guess, you know what? I guess a lot of people are going to get their population decline that they want in that case.
I guess.
You know what I mean?
Like, because there's also a lot of talk in this space about like, well, since women are so bad, they have to see the repercussions. It's like, well, we're going to feel them too. I mean,
right. Like, it ultimately hurts everybody.
Like, all it means, because not only is it going to lead to like obviously less fertility rates is what we're seeing, and like depopulation, but also a lack of care for what's happening to where you live. How many people are really like proud of where of America right now?
Right. Yeah.
I get like too political, but like it's more of like a sense of like pride of nationalism. Now that usually derives from when you're kind of optimistic about life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Like you feel like you like you have something to live for. You have purpose. What I think this Red Pill space often does, maybe it doesn't intentionally mean to do. I think the way people take it is they take the information, then they lose purpose, become demoralized. They don't care about anything, like not even just women, but also their country, their family. I mean, just everything in general. So I'm kind of concerned of what's the future of this kind of information and what kind of, I don't want to, obviously I don't want to censor. I just want to change the attitude.
Right.
Where it's just, is the answer to become demoralized? Because that's what the other side is doing right now. And I mean, we make fun of them for that. Are we not going the same path right now? What's that going to look like in 20 years?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And then, well, the only way to do that is to allow conversations to happen and allow people to actually be open to this discussion, which is the problem with why we both got muted out of that Discord was like, and why we ended up leaving is because now there's mods in there that are like, you can't challenge anything that I say, you know, which is really bad, because in that sort of community, especially if it's a community full of men who are trying to like seek truth, what you need is people to dissent and to not subscribe to the narrative that's being pushed there, because if everybody's just in their same bubble, you're not doing anything better than what everybody hates of like the wokeness or the far left or whatever it is. I mean, I was just looking at I was reading an article. This is from February on New York Times, and it was literally said, don't critically think about things. Like, it was an opinion piece, and it was like, don't critically think. And it was like this guy, oh God, I can't remember his name, but he created this thing called the SIFT method for learning, for figuring out like what to read or whatever online. And it basically like boils down to find out who the source is. And if Wikipedia says it's a far right or a conspiracy theorist or somebody, don't read it. Basically, only read information that we think is good. The irony was, this is a really long New York Times article, and it's like, shouldn't I just sift this and just say this is from the New York Times? Fuck you, like you know what I mean?
It's a very common problem, like that's happening in like whenever we talk about this. This is why when it comes to current events, when it comes to science, or when it comes to like comparing articles, it's very rarely about the source and finding the truth.
Right.
It's more so about what the other person wants to be true.
Right.
Because obviously in this scenario, we both know Wikipedia is composed.
Right,
almost everything is compromised in 2021. I mean, you really have to be careful of everything from every source. On the left, you have a bunch of like co-opted organizations that intentionally try to not give you the full truth,
right,
support a narrative. And on the right, you have a lot of people who they tend to give more of the story, but there's kind of like a lack of integrity I've noticed, where it's more so for grifting. It's more like for some kind of like monetary end goal or whatnot. Like, I know Ben Shapiro has been accused of that many times.
But people say that because he has sponsors, and I'm like, I mean, like, that's not necessarily like, if we got a sponsor, I wouldn't be mad. I'd be like, okay, cool. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know if you know Mark Dice.
Yes, of course. That guy's hilarious.
Yeah, he made a 10-minute video on Ben, and it raises concerns about his integrity.
Okay.
Because you find that he's kind of in bed with Facebook, and you also have to wonder why he's never been censored ever.
Yeah.
It's an interesting video to watch, but we do have to be careful about that, like on the right, because there's a lot of that going on.
Well, you know, I mean, like, there's gonna be good and bad on both sides, or like there's gonna be like things that you don't like. Like, I used to listen to Ben Shapiro like all the time. I haven't really listened to him as much anymore, but there's things that I disagree with on him. There's things that I agree with. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I read that New York Times article, right? And that's what I'm saying. The irony is, what they're telling me to do in that article is basically is exactly the opposite of what I did. Which is read the fucking article. Actually, I had somebody. So I read Epic Times a lot, and I had somebody at work. I subscribe to them because I like the fact that, like, it seems, at least to me right now, that they're really trying to just give you facts, and like, they'll be like, this is alleged, this is, you know, they'll use pretty good journalistic language, and I like that. I'm sure that they have their own biases or whatever. Like, they have some
they definitely have like a anti-communist league, which I don't mind personally. But I get what you're saying. Like,
so I sent somebody at work an article because they were talking about like, vaccines or whatever. This person's weird. It's like trying to get people to get vaccines or whatever. I said, well, in my home state, there are actually a bunch of people who died from from COVID, even though they had the vaccine. And they're like, well, that would have been in the news. So I sent them the article about from Epic Times, because obviously, dude, the mainstream media is not going to tell you fucking everything. One, because there's only so much time in the day, but two, because they're trying to line pockets of certain people. They have interests in whatever, and that's just reality.
Right. You know, I had a conversation with a good friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about this. And in my mind, I know he, like, not only does he not really understand the scape of the kind of news that's going on, like who's behind it, who's really, like, it's like three people who own most of the
exactly,
anyway, including Fox. Like,
exactly,
crazy when you consider like who owns where. You follow the money, it all makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, but we were kind of going back and forth on like current events, and like we have a very different fundamental view. But what I was looking for was kind of like an unconscious admittance of why he believes the things he believes,
right?
And he basically kind of admitted in like a few words. He was just like, wait, so you think NBC is liberal? And I was like, that's all I really need to know. Because you like, there's no awareness as to how, like obviously they have
what the biases are.
Like, it's very obvious with that organization. And I like, he's even questioned before. I remember we had a discussion about where we get our sources. He's like, but dude, it's CNN, and it's just like I'm kind of sitting back here. I can't just tell him it's bias. I have to deconstruct this worldview from top to bottom. I don't know if I can do this within the next 20 minutes. It's gonna take a long.
Well, so the thing about it is, it's okay if you watch CNN, but also watch other things, right? So that's my thing. Is it's like what I used to do when I was doing the other podcast way back in the day was I would find something, and I would subscribe to both the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times at the time, and I would find an article from both of those, because Wall Street Journal is very right leaning and right bias typically, and New York Times very left bias. So I would find an article about it from both sources. Typically, whatever they both were saying is the truth, and everything else was just bias. And what I would find, though, is that the New York Times more often would put the truth aspect at the end, and the Wall Street Journal will put it at the beginning.
Yeah,
that's the main difference I would find. But so if you're watching some stuff and you're only watching some stuff, that's the problem. So what I said to this guy is I sent him the Epic Times article. And instead of reading it, which I presume he didn't, instead of reading it, he did exactly what the New York Times article SIFT method was. He sent me a Wikipedia page that said, this is a far right news publication. And I was just like, are you kidding? You're joking, right? That's really what you just did? Yeah. Like, okay.
They look to discredit it.
Right. It's about who's saying it, not what's being said.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, well, they're saying, I said, okay, well, unless the New Jersey Health Department is lying, like, I don't know why they would. I'm sure that they could, but like, I don't know why they would lie about that. But sure, whatever. If that's how you want to live your life, that's fine. But the reason why these people are doing this is because their newspaper sources are literally telling them to do that. Yeah. And then it seeps over to everything else. That's where you get now you get the people in Discord getting mad at us because we're dissenting, because we're saying things that are different from the popular narrative, because everything on every side is telling people to stay in their echo chambers. Don't associate or talk to people or read things from people who don't agree with you. And I think that's incredibly dangerous.
It's very easy to do too. I think that's also the main thing. It's easy to just accept the narrative and just take it for what it is.
Right.
So what I notice a lot of, like, usually what a lot of people on the left do, and they just kind of listen to you and they kind of like parrot the same things, is they won't tell you they trust the media, but they're acting as if they do.
Right.
Like they won't admit, like, no, I mean, the media kind of does whatever. They give like this very vague, because they don't want to admit that they don't want to admit that they're acting as sheep.
Right, exactly.
It's not like,
well, it's sad. It's demoralizing. Yeah, you don't want to admit that.
Exactly, you don't want to admit that. But that's what they're doing. They accept the narrative for what it is, and they assume these people have their best interests. They don't challenge it. Like I told my friend, I was like, I watch NBC videos on YouTube all the time. I just understand like what's going on.
Yeah.
But like, that's kind of why I watch it, is that it gives me a better understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
From like of what they're trying to do.
Right.
Like, it's kind of like it's like multi-layered. It's like, I know there's propaganda, and I know they have to put some truth. I know they're going to put some spin on it. What are they going to spin? I know people are going to believe this. Like, I have this all going on in my head as I'm watching it.
Right.
And that's why I watch it. I think it's good to watch that with that mindset. That's not what people are doing. They're just kind of watching, taking it as it as it is. And that's why I was trying to explain that to him without, like, it's very hard to explain these things without like seeming as if like you're berating them for being dumb or being like uninformed. And I think I've gotten actually kind of good at that. I'm kind of like just kind of like attacking what they do, but not what the person does.
Right.
They tend to listen more. It's just the hard part is actually getting them to listen and then change their behavior. That's, I don't think I could do that. I think it's gonna take time over and over, just berating that.
Well, it's comfortable. I mean, like the red pill thing, right? Like in the Matrix, remember what happens is when Neo wakes up, he freaks out. When they wake him up, excuse me, I don't know what I ate or something, but when they wake him up, he gets, he sees that he was a battery and all that stuff. He pulls the thing out of his mouth, and then they wake him up, and he like freaks out. And he's like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't, and like pukes, and he like freaks out. That's because it's difficult to come to the realization that you have had a veil over your eyes for your entire life. And a lot of people resist it, and they want to stay in the Matrix. That's like the whole metaphor. That's why the people that's why the Agent Smiths, people just turn into Agent Smiths and try to attack them, because that's what they're doing. If you start attacking their narrative, whatever it is, if it's MSNBC, if it's Red Pill stuff, if it's whatever, they Fresh and Fit, right? They will start attacking you because you are a threat to their system and their worldview, right? Their worldview is this whole thing, and if it shatters, then they have no sense of self left. So that's the entire metaphor. This is why people need to rewatch The Matrix and don't listen to people who are like, oh, it's a metaphor for being trans, because it's not. It's a metaphor for learning what the world actually is. And all of those Agent Smiths is the same thing. Like, and then when you see that movie again, and then you have a conversation with somebody who disagrees with you and see how vehemently they defend their worldview, you're going to understand what the metaphor of the Agent Smith actually was. It's
like less about what goes on with women and more about learning to have self-awareness.
Absolutely.
And not have automatic trust in what you hear.
Absolutely.
Because then it won't just go with women and go with literally everything you read.
Absolutely.
And life becomes a lot easier to maneuver because you know what's going on. It's not like you don't have these unexplained things that you can't. I don't really understand why this is like this. Like, you know what's going on.
Yeah,
now.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
now you can have an answer for it. And that's where I like the white pill stuff. I think Kevin Ray mentioned.
Kevin Ray Wilder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that guy's funny.
Because I think part of being a man is recognizing a problem and finding an answer. We get fulfillment out of that. We like to answer problems. And so this space has helped me tremendously with like learning how to recognize problems. And I think recognizing problems is the first step, because solutions, solutions are definitely difficult depending on what it is. But I find that recognizing the problem could be also just as hard, if not harder, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
Like even once with current events and basically with cultural issues, it's really hard to not only recognize, but whatever, especially with culture, because when you think you have a solution for a cultural issue, you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
So you find out you have to get people behind to rally behind a solution. That's very hard to do, as we saw in this Discord. Mm-hmm. Very difficult to do when people are very attached to the ways the narratives they subscribe to, regardless of what it is, Red Pill or whatever.
Yeah. It is. I wonder if it's like, so you just got to do one person at a time. I think Jordan Peterson's talked about this, where it's like, if you talk to 100 people, you might offend 10 of them, et cetera, whatever. I think that in that sense, it's like, if you talk to 10 people, you might reach one person. If you talk to 100 people, you might reach 10 people or whatever. That's why it's important for you guys to share this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this far and wide, especially this episode, man, because this is one that I think that gamers really need to watch, because it's not about gaming per se, but it's about how to make change your mentality about stuff, and it will help you. It might even help you get better at your freaking video games, to be honest with you. But yeah, at that point, Ceelows, let them know where the hell they can find you.
You can find me on YouTube and Twitch at Ceelows.
All right, you can find me at Twitch at MisterBehavior. You can find me on Minds at MisterBehavior. You can find me on YouTube at MisterBehavior, but that's all spelled out. So MISTER Behavior. And we will be back next week with some more nonsense. We might even talk about video games next week. So see you guys on the next one.
Just a beginner. Get up, whip, and bask in the glory of a winner. My strength is much greater than yours. I'm a street fighting legend, the creator of wars. No use debating the score. I've waited patiently for someone to pound through the ground. I'll smash your face in the floor. Get lost, dog. I'm the boss. You can't compare with my powers. I play this game for the fame. They claim the hundreds of hours.
Listen.